Hi everybody, this is Steve Ludwig, host of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture and the Beatles Hour with Steve Ludwig at planetludwig.com. Here's an interview we did with author S.E. Hinton, author of the great novel The Outsiders and the screenplay of the movie The Outsiders. The interview was done on September 10th, 2013, show number 6. To hear the entire show, including cool music and retro commercials, check out the menu at planetludwig.com. And now, please enjoy the interview.
And of course, Stevie Wonder with Stay Gold, probably the theme song, certainly one of the themes of one of the greatest novels ever written, The Outsiders. And I am privileged and honored to have with us right now the author of The Outsiders. That was Then, This Is Now, Tex, Rumblefish, Taming the Star Runner, and a score of others, Ms. S.E. Hinton. Ms. Hinton, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, let's wait to see how I do before you say that.
No, nothing you can do is going to be wrong on this show, believe me. You know,
okay.
I mentioned to my audience earlier that in my other life, I'm an 8th grade teacher. And, you know, it's funny, I hear more often, or maybe not more often, but many great writers like yourself didn't really like school. Did you like school?
It depended on the class. I did well in the classes I liked, but I didn't do well in the classes I didn't like. That way.
Yeah. Did a teacher...
I really had some great English teachers. However, my creative writing teacher flunked me the year I was writing The Outsiders.
I was going to ask you, did a teacher inspire you to begin your writing, or...?
Oh, no. The act of reading inspired me to begin writing. I began writing in grade school.
Who did you read in grade? Just regular short stories, or was there was a particular author later on?
Horse books.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was always reading horse books in the beginning. I was one of those little girls that don't want a horse. They want to be a horse. So I read every horse book I could find, and I also loved about any kind of animal book. My favorite all-time book in grade school was called Duff, The Story of a Bear. And, of course, it's out of print and everything, but I just recently ordered it from an out-of-print place, and came in the same red cover I remember from grade school library. And I read it, and I thought, damn, you have very good taste, because it's not any Disney story of a bear.
Yeah.
It's a realistic story of a bear.
You must have gotten goose pimples when you actually saw that book itself and you held it in your hands.
I did.
Yeah.
I was so thrilled, and I was even thrilled to read it and be proud of my young self. Make that my favorite book.
What do you think of ebooks? Are you okay with them, or do you prefer hard?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I have a Kindle. You know, as I get older, it's not preferred when I buy. I usually buy hardbacks if I can. But, you know, it's getting harder to see the print. It's getting harder to hold the book up. You know, and it's, I've got probably 500 books in my Kindle. I mean, I love it. Besides that, practically every wall in my house is covered in bookshelves, which are filled with books. And now I can quit this kind of manic building bookshelf thing that I've been doing.
I don't think there's a former student from 1967 on when The Outsiders, your first book came out, that doesn't know the name S.E. Hinton. For the 10 people perhaps that don't know your backstory, what made you decide to write The Outsiders, first of all? We'll start that and then we'll work up.
Okay, well, I began it when I was 15. I was a junior in high school. And I was mad about the social situation in my high school, which was basically the social classes pitted against each other. I went to a huge high school. The graduating class, the seniors, the year I graduated, were 1,000 pupils. So you can imagine how many kids we had in that class. I was in the baby boomer thing. But you couldn't have a lot of friends because everybody got in their own little group and stayed in their own little group. And I thought this was really ridiculous. And I wrote about the two extreme groups, the socials and the greasers, but of course there were 60 jillion in between groups too.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I didn't see why you couldn't be friends with everybody. And I grew up in a greaser neighborhood, and when a friend of mine got beat up on his way home from school, I was mad about it, and I began a short story about a kid who got beaten up on his way home from the movies. But the other reason I wrote it was I just loved to write. Loved to write. I started writing in grade school. The Outsider's actually third book I'd written, just the first I ever tried to publish, and I wrote all the time. So here I loved to write, had a story to write, and then also I wanted to read it, because I know it sounds weird, but at that time there was nothing realistic being written for what they call nowadays young adults or teens. If you're through the kids' books and the animal books, and you really weren't ready for the adult books, what you got to read was Mary Jane Goes to the Prom or Tommy Hits a Home Run. And, I just couldn't read that stuff. So, another reason why I wrote it was to read it.
You mentioned it was actually your third book. I know the first two weren't published, but may I ask what they were about?
Oh, in sixth grade, I wrote a book about the Civil War, and I have no idea what I thought I knew about the Civil War, but I do remember how I transitioned. Every chapter was, they went to sleep, the next day started a new chapter. I mean, it was, stupid. The one I wrote in the ninth grade actually wasn't too bad. It was about some kids working on a dude ranch. And I actually used parts of it for Taming the Star Runner. Mm-hmm. But it still wasn't anything I wanted to get published, but it was good practice. A lot of kids write me, and while I'm stuck in my novel, I'm going like, I hope you're not starting off trying to write a novel. Write a short story. Write a letter from a character. I was doing everything.
That's great.
Until then, but I only attempted to write a novel when I could sustain, short stories or, some letters back and forth from different characters or stuff. You don't start off the novel.
That's wonderful advice. For those of my present students who aren't listening live right now, they will be listening to us on the replay, and that's great advice. They say, "Oh my gosh, S.E. Hinton, she was a teenager. She wrote this novel," but you didn't just wake up and write the novel. It's a process.
I practiced for 8 years. What I always tell kids is read and practice. Mm-hmm. You read to learn how. You practice to know how. And do that for years.
Very well put. Now, S.E., for those who don't know what your initials stand for, could you tell us what they stand for and why you used S.E. rather than your names?
Okay. My name is Susan Eloise, and Hinton was my maiden name. And it was my publisher's idea to use my initials, and all they wanted to do was fool the first reviewers. They were afraid reviewers would pick up the book, see it was about, social class warfare, decide a girl couldn't know anything about this, and read it with a prejudice. And they didn't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. And it worked. I mean, the first reviewers were, this young man has written this book, blah, blah, blah. But after that, it wasn't any secret. I went to New York. I was on TV. I was on radio.
Sure.
Nobody, they didn't hire some scruffy kid in a leather jacket to be So, it worked because I very much like having a private name and a public name. Mm-hmm. And as much as people scream sexism, I'm sorry, it is still true that boys usually will not read girls' books, and girls will read boys' books. And I'm still glad that I use my initials. And I say in this day and age this shouldn't be happening. Sure, right, but get realistic.
It is a sad commentary. Do you see much difference, or do you think there's still quite a way to go with the sexism today?
I don't know. I don't pay any attention, but as you know, J.K. Rowling's using her initials. A lot of women writers do it. Of course, I talked to Yale Doctorow once, and he said people say because I use my initial, I'm a woman. So I guess it can work both ways.
Mm-hmm. Now, The Outsiders, of course, was made into a Francis Ford Coppola gem in 1983. You had quite a bit to do with the actual movie making itself. Can you take us through that process?
Well, by the time The Outsiders came up to being made, Tex had already been shot, and it was Disney's first PG movie. And literally, the Tex people had just left. They came here to shoot. I made some of the best friends of my life on that show. My horse played the horse. I played a typing teacher. I gave Matt Dillon writing lessons. It was the first time I'd met Matt, and we became very, very good friends after that.
Matt Dillon's horse was your real horse? Wow.
I'd trained from a baby, and he absolutely loved Matt and would knock me down to get to Matt, and it really made me mad. But they got along so well. He did better for Matt than he did for me, let me put it that way. But, and he was a champion jumper, and he thought, he already had an ego like you wouldn't believe, and he thought all those cameras and lights and people were all for him. And I had the production manager say he was the best behaved horse on the set he'd ever seen. Well, it took me months after to get him to move without yelling action.
Now, you're from Oklahoma, for those of our listeners. Do you still live in Oklahoma, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
And that's, I'm sure, from where your love of horses came from.
No, I was one of those little girls that was just born horse crazy. I think little girls are either horse nuts or doll nuts, and I was a horse nut.
Could we call you a tomboy? Would that be fair assessment?
Yeah. Most of my friends are boys. I like doing the boy stuff, and that's one reason why I found it very easy to write from a boy's point of view. And I still find it extremely easy to write from the male point of view. Much easier than, it's just like I couldn't identify with the female culture at the time. So I used to think maybe I had a man's mind and a woman's body, but I'm not struck with refrigerator blindness. I mean, if I don't see the mustard the second I open the fridge, I know how to find it. Which most men seem like that's the problem of the universe. You don't open the fridge and it's not immediately visible. It's just horribly scary to try to find it.
I wish that was the only problem in the universe, for crying out loud.
But anyway, back to me. Where were we?
We were talking about
the
Outsiders. Outsiders. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Francis Coppola came to town just as Tim Hunter, the director of The Outsiders, director of Tex, had come to town and asked me to show him locations. And I showed him. And he said, great, I want to shoot it here. And I said, fine. He said, you want to help me write screenplays? I said, sure. And so I was there for scouting locations. I was there for consulting with wardrobe. I was there to help Francis write the screenplay. Although neither of us got credit, I'm here to tell you that we did write the screenplay.
No.
This all has something to do with the Screenwriters Guild, and don't want to go into it. But Francis and I are the only people that wrote the screenplay for The Outsiders.
Yeah, it certainly has.
And then the boys came to town, and once in a while Francis was busy, and he said, you want to go rehearse the boys, run lines with the boys. I did that. We were very lucky. We had weeks of rehearsal time. They got to do improv. I loved every single one of my Outsiders actors. They were so wonderful. I mean, they came from all over the place, but they all bonded so strongly. They were all sweet kids in their very different ways.
May I get down
most of the time, what?
I'm so sorry. No, continue.
But they were goofy teens, off camera, just like you imagine teenage boys to be, but then they were get in front of the camera and they're serious artists. And it was just amazing to watch that transformation. So, we all bonded very strongly. It was fun.
May I go down the list of actors and actresses, and you just give a quick sentence what you think of them? Okay. Well, how about first the late Patrick Swayze?
Patrick was really nice. Now, I didn't feel like his mother, like I did with the other guys, because he was closer to my own age.
Mm-hmm.
But and he at times he took his role as Big Brother too seriously.
Are
you still there?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, and the boys didn't think of him as Big Brother, so they blew him off every once in a while. But he he was very, dedicated to his role, and he was very, worked out to do his gymnastics, and he was, just always doing something physical that took a lot of mind control, like practicing his archery and things like that.
Almost some method acting, too, I guess, right? He was the big brother in the story, so on the set, too, I guess he felt. How about Matt Dillon? I know he's a friend of yours, obviously.
Yeah, he's a very good friend. We did 3 movies and a publicity tour together. But Matt was, he was so perfect for the role. It's funny because I had to ask Francis and Fred Rose, the casting director, if they would look at Matt, because they were looking at everybody, and I was getting kind of upset. And I guess it was because they thought he just, because they knew he'd just done a movie with me. But I said, please look at Matt. So he went in and read for Francis, and Francis said, fine, Matt, you can go home. Oh, poor kid. He thought he meant, go home. You're not right, or something.
Yeah.
And he was going like, calling his manager, going, oh, man, I must have blown it or something. But, it turns out Francis meant, go home. You're it.
Yeah. He probably thought I did so well in text. What happened? Right?
So that was kind of funny. And he was, he's perfect for Dallas, which I knew he would be.
Miss Hinton, every time we watch the movie after we read the novel, the biggest laugh comes in your cameo when you play Matt Dillon's nurse. And I don't want to give too much of it away for those who haven't.
Oh, Ralph was so perfect. Now, I was nervous because I didn't know him from anything. I knew he'd been on TV series. I guess 8 is enough. But I didn't, I had no idea what he would be like. But after the first table reading, I just walked up and slapped him on the back and said, kid, I'm going to get a good night's sleep tonight because of you. You are going to be great.
The perfect Johnny, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was funny because Ralph was 20, although he certainly didn't look it. But he was just that much older than the rest of them to behave like an adult. And he would be in his room studying his lines and stuff while they were all running around carousing and tearing up the hotel.
I guess he was more, I was going to say he's probably more what Patrick Swayze type of. Did he and Patrick get along well? And no, Patrick really kind of just.
Oh, everybody got along great.
Yeah,
but Ralph did not try to be Big Brother to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he just.
I know from your tweets, C. Thomas Hell, and you guys recently had dinner together. I saw from one of your tweets.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a buddy of yours. You call him Tommy, though, correct? I don't want to call him that because, but
yeah. Well, we had, we had 2 Toms on the set, but Tommy was young. He was 15, and we always called him Tommy, so we called Tom Cruise Cruz. But yeah, Tommy and I all the Outsiders boys are still really good friends of mine. I saw Rob a couple of weeks ago on the same trip. I saw Tommy. And we hadn't seen each other in 30 years, and we picked up right where we left off. Every single one of them tells me that the Outsiders movie set standard, that, the bond is never broken.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so nice to hear. I know she was also in Rumblefish. How about Diane Lane? Let's.
Oh, Diane was such a nice girl, and I kind of felt bad for her because I think she would like to have just hung out and been one of the guys on the set. But every time she came to the set, I don't know, to test around and just destroyed their brain cells. They would just be running around, bumping into each other, cracking their heads up. I mean, it was
everyone had a crush on Diane. Everyone had a crush, I'm sure.
all of them had mad crushes on Diane.
Yeah.
But it made the, how teenage boys are with girls they have crushes on, all the teasing and pranks and all this stuff. And honestly, I did wish they'd let her just hang out and be a friend.
But that wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. I noticed from some of your tweets, you are a big fan of the show Supernatural, aren't you?
Oh yeah, very big fan.
You even had a cameo on that show, from what I understand.
Yeah, I got killed in the diner by the Leviathan versions of Sam and Dean, which was fun. Now, I've been visiting the set for, I guess, over 5 years now.
Wow.
Twice a year, but I've always been a big fan from season 1. But I have a lot of good friends there, the crew, some of the cast. And
are you generally a science fiction fan?
Oh, this is not science fiction at all. It's horror.
Afterlife and...
But it's paranormal, supernatural.
That was too much.
That's something I've always been interested in. So when Entertainment Weekly came out with the fall edition of here are the new TV shows, and they had here is the new TV show. These two brothers are raised by their dad to hunt supernatural things. I'm going like, oh gosh, that sounds like something I'd like. So, I definitely started watching it, but it's so much more than that. It's all about relationships, the brothers' relationships, their family relationship. I mean, it's, supernatural, but like I say to people, it came for the subject, but it stayed for the story.
Yeah.
Excellent writing. Absolutely excellent writing. Great acting. Great production values. I mean, it's my favorite all-time TV show.
It certainly sounds character-driven. It sounds like one of my favorite shows. I don't know. Are you a Dexter fan?
Oh yeah, I watch Dexter.
That's another great character-driven show. I think that people just hear Dexter, serial killer. I'm not going to watch it, but that's kind of what I think Supernatural. See, right away I characterize it as science fiction, and you corrected me. No. There's a lot. It's a lot deeper than just science fiction.
Well, it's not even science fiction at all.
Yeah, I just said it again.
Yeah. Because I'm not that wild about science fiction, but I am very interested in the paranormal. I've had so many strange things happen in my life, and I'm constantly reading like true quote unquote paranormal books. So but they also use a whole lot of urban legends, which I'm also very interested in.
Would you feel like sharing any of those paranormal instances? I know you're a private person, and I'm sorry if I put you on the spot there.
I've just had beyond strange coincidences happen in my life, like how I even got published, which I'll just sum up as God sent me an agent. I had the Outsiders in my drawer with my other stuff I'd written. I hadn't cared anything about publishing. I knew someday I'd be a writer, but I wasn't ready to research publishing. And God gave me an agent. So I'm going to explain this. And I stayed with that agent for over 30 years until her death. As Marilyn Marlowe of Curtis Brown Limited. And great agent, legendary agent, great agency. But how I got there was just, I can't tell kids how to get an agent. Because God's not going to give them an agent.
Yeah.
Got to go out and find one.
You obviously believe in the afterlife.
Oh yeah. Of course, yes.
Now, of course, your young adult books, The Outsiders, that was then. This is now Rumblefish Text, Taming the Star Runner. You have a couple of children's books, Big David, Little David, and The Puppy Sister.
For those true stories.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask you. Well, with David, I know that's your husband's name. Is he the Big David?
Well, when Nick started kindergarten,
your son.
When Dave and I both have this weird sense of humor, and when Nick started kindergarten, he came home and talked to his dad and said, There's a kid in my class who's named David, and he has black hair like you, and he wears glasses like you. Is that you? And David said, yeah, it's me. Every day I get little and go to school with you. Well, it freaked Nick out. Absolutely freaked him out. Mm-hmm. And we kept this up for a long time, because I would pick Nick up from school and say, what happened today? And he'd go, oh, God, his Kelsey threw up is so gross. So I'd go home and call David and say, Kelsey threw up today. And David come home and go, God, he grossed out when Kelsey threw up. I was. Oh, David, and Nick was just like, why does Dad want to get little and go to school with me? You know, did this whole thing. And my editor was visiting one summer we kept talking over ideas for young adult books, and we couldn't think of anything. I just started telling him the story, because his daughter was about the same age as Nick. And I looked up, and he seemed to be torn between falling off the couch laughing and calling social services. So he said, write that up as a picture book. So I did, and they sent me a work of like 3 artists that they liked use, and I got to pick the artist, and he was great. The pictures are so energetic. He even put the dog in the story, and I didn't mention having a dog. And anyway, that was fun. So I started looking around the house to see what else I could write about, and I noticed that our puppy, who we got to be a sibling for Nick, because he's an only child, had turned herself into a member of the family, but it wasn't without sibling rivalry, because Nick at first would come in and, Mom, I'm trying to play Nintendo, and Alicia's bothering me, and then Alicia would come bounding in and like, I know he's supposed to be playing with me, but he's not playing with me. And I go, oh, God. I have to write a book about the sibling rivalry between a boy and his puppy. And then one day when they came home for a walk, Nick said, I think Alicia's wondering when she's going to turn into a real kid like me. And I thought, oh, man, there's my hook.
Wow.
So I wrote a story about a puppy who thought she was going to have more fun if she turned herself into a human child, and by sheer determination, she did it.
So for all of my former students who are now adults and parents, kids, adults, these are 2 perfect books you can buy for your kids now. 2 more S.E. Hinton books, Big David, Little David, and the Puppy Sister. You mentioned Nick. He's involved with movies now. How, your son?
No, he's not involved with movies.
I'm sorry. I thought he was a sound effects man.
He has a sound effects credit on Ice Age 2. He interned at Skywalker Sound System, sound department out in, Skywalker in Northern California. Did great, and did get his sound effects credit, but he's in San Francisco now. He hasn't been able to find a job in sound, which his degree's in sound engineering, but he's also extremely high-tech, and he's working in a high-tech job now, and people are trying to poach him because he's so good at it that he's making a lot of money, but he keeps telling us, I'm going to, work at this and save up my money and then and then someday I will do what I really want to do. So.
Good for him. I wish him all the best. Now, you also, in 2004, 2007, you wrote an adult fiction writer, Hawks Harbor and some of Tim's stories. Before we talk about those 2, are you pretty much finished with young adult fiction? Or you can't?
Well, I'll never say never. But right now, I don't have any plans to do again. I'm working on another novel, but it's another adult novel, which is believe it or not, a paranormal comedy thriller.
Oh, wow, right. Paranormal comedy thriller. That sounds like fun.
It's a fun book to write. I'm about halfway through. I hope I get to go back to it. But I keep having other projects kind of interrupt it. But
now,
right now, I don't. If the story comes to me naturally, I'll write it. But I'm not looking around, let me put it that way, for another young adult book to write.
When you do get into your rhythm of writing a book, do you set a certain amount during the day? Do you have any kind of method? It's like, I know for a while, I think what that was then, you made sure you wrote 2 pages because you had some trouble
Yeah.
Do you
I
have
was suffering from writer's block during that was in, and so my husband was my boyfriend at the time, said, just do 2 pages a day, and nobody's ever died from that, which is spoken like a true non-writer. That's really how I wrote. That was in, but I've written every single one of them differently because I keep looking for an easy way to do it. I haven't found one yet. But Hawks Harbor, I just wanted to break the rules. I'd follow the rules, use a single point of view, whether you're doing third person or first person. Blew that away. Didn't set it in Oklahoma. Went all over the frigging world for it. Used, my husband always said, you could write soft porn. You ought to try writing soft porn. Well, I wrote, some pretty heavy-duty, sexy scenes in Hawks Harbor, and he's reading it. He goes, oh, my God, you're writing soft porn. I'm going, duh, yeah.
Hello.
But it all had to do with it, the life experience of the main character, so it wasn't extraneous, but I just had so much fun. Some of the chapters are told from other people's point of view, not just Jamie, who's the main character. Went all over the world. I was, smuggling jewels out of Burma, was running guns to Ireland. I'm just like, wahoo!
Right,
This is fun. It was the most fun novel I wrote yet, and I wrote it. I learned something from the movies about scenes, and I wrote it in scenes. I'd think, well, I need the scene here where Jamie gets out of the mental hospital and he's still basically crazy. So I'd write that, and then I'd write, oh, well, I haven't written a scene yet where Kel Quinn, who was one of my favorite characters to write, who was known as a famous storyteller. I haven't written a chapter yet, but it has him telling a story. I'll write that. I mean, it was just, and just didn't even put them in order until, I was ready to send it to the publisher. It was just, just a blast. But like all my books, even though there's some supernatural stuff in it, it's about relationships. So, and then 10 stories.
That's
I went all over the world.
Such a clever way of writing. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, since after Hawks Harbor, where I completely followed no rules and went all over the place, I decided, okay, I'm going to draw back and put discipline and more discipline than ever into this book. And I wrote the short stories out of order, too. There are 10 stories is a collection of short stories dealing with the same characters. But I only allowed myself 1,000 words per story. And at first, and this is just something I decided to do, nobody suggested. I was just like, okay, how disciplined can I be? 1,000 words per story. At first, I'd get a great story done, and it would be 1,035, and I'd think, well, there's no way in hell I can cut 35 words out of this. But I could, and I did. And the time I wrote the last ones, I was hitting 995 without even looking at word count.
Wow.
So, and there's only one story in there that's longer than 1,000 words. But it's my best writing because it's so, they're so short, I had to make every word count. And I wanted to leave each story with the reader feeling an emotion. Not what happens next. You don't read those to see what happens next. You read them slowly. They're written very slowly, and see how you feel at the end of each story.
It must have been, I don't know if fun is the right word, but it must have been exciting for you to write that way. You kind of look forward to each new 1,000-word entry, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was, in its own way, it was very fun and very challenging, though they're not particularly, there's some humor in some of them, but they're very, very emotional. But another thing is I love writing endings. I always had the ending in mind before I started writing.
Oh.
And here I got, 12, 13 endings to do, and man, I nailed those endings. It was just like, shivers.
Do you find, are you an author, you often hear writers that say that you start out with a character, but the character takes you rather than you drive the character. Does that happen with you, with your characters, or are you pretty much in the driver's seat all the time? Do you know what I mean with the characters?
Well, I went so far under with Tim in my short stories. I mean, I have to be emotionally involved in my books, and that's why I don't write a lot of them. And it takes me a long time usually to come out of it. I'm not prolific. I never have been. But all my books have wiped me out emotionally until I'm ready to start in again. But I went so far under with Tim. He's a bartender in a neighborhood tavern in a little small northern Oklahoma town. And I would be thinking all day, like what's going on in the bar, this and that, whether I wrote a story about it or not. And I was telling my husband one night, I said, what happened tonight in the bar, blah, blah. And he looks at me and he goes, do you know you're starting to sound like him?
Wow.
But he had a lot of opinions that are different from mine. I've never thought I had to have the same opinion as my narrator. When one of them says something politically incorrect, that's not necessarily the way I feel. It's what the character would say.
Yeah.
But Tim had several subject he felt very, very strongly about that I felt strongly about in the other direction. I've never gone that far under with a character before. So I'm happy to say my narrator of this silly book I'm writing now is one of the most superficial people I've ever written. It's so easy. Relaxing.
Well, that's wow. No,
he's just self-centered. He doesn't think about anything except himself. It's wonderful.
What I like about some of Tim's stories, the book, is that actually the second half of the book, now this is for all S.E. Hinton fans, it includes interviews with you.
Right.
And you discuss some of your earlier work and the movies, and I found that interesting as well.
Well, that's due to one of my best friends, Teresa Miller, who does a wonderful show that I think hits 3 states nowadays out of Oklahoma. It's called Writing Out Loud. And she interviews authors, and I mean she's interviewed Amy Tan and Pat Conroy and Tracy Litt, just a lot of really good writers. And we did an interview years and years ago, and we just hit it off. I mean, she's not pretentious. She's very down to earth. She's very supportive of writers and their work, and we've become best friends over the years. And I was showing her my stories, and she said, well, Susie, I want to see if I can get these published. She had her own imprint at OU, at the University of Oklahoma. And she got the short stories published, but she also interviewed me for all those interviews in the back. And she'd just come over, and we'd split a bottle of wine, and we had to edit. She was recording everything, and of course we go way over what we were supposed to be talking about. So we forget we were being
I don't remember saying that.
yeah, but so those. I hope I sound relaxed in those interviews because I was very relaxed.
I would love to share some of the awards that you've won with our listeners. First of all, you're in the Oklahoma. How about this? Do I sound like a New Jersey guy? The Oklahoma Writers Hall of Fame, Oklahoma State University, Tulsa. New York Times 2012 Award for Best Novel. 1988 Margaret A. Edwards Award from the American Library Association for your first 4 young adult novels. This is a rhetorical question, but how does it feel to know you have affected so many people's lives and have made lovers of reading because of your books? It's got to be quite fulfilling.
To me, that's the letters I get are much more rewarding than getting an award. Not that I have anything against getting an award. It's fine. It's great. But I get letters constantly, from teachers and from kids and from adults and I love the ones that say, I have these classes, they never read a book, but they read your book, and now they, want to read other things, and I get letters from kids. I didn't think I could finish a book, but I finished a book, and because of you, now I like reading, and that's wonderful. But the ones I get that say, you changed my life, you've changed my whole outlook on the world, I get letters like that from prison, I got a letter from a vet who was suffering from post-traumatic stress thing, who said Hawks Harbor helped him deal with his life. Now, I mean, stuff like that scares me. It really does kind of scare me.
Because?
And I just tell people it's the message, it's not the messenger. There's nothing fabulous within me. But if it's in the book and it affected you like that, I'm thrilled. But the outsiders especially, all over the world, I can't even tell you many different foreign languages, and people telling me it changed their life. To me, the rest of them I can take credit for, but the outsiders was supposed to be out there, and I got chosen to write it. So it's bigger than me. I mean, it's bigger. It's done more good than I personally could ever do in my lifetime.
Well, you're a very humble person, Miss Hinton. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending. I can't believe, unfortunately, 45 minutes has passed by already. It felt like 10 minutes. If I may speak for my present students, my former students, I can't tell you how many, especially with Facebook now, their fondest memories of having me as an 8th grade teacher was reading your novels. We used to do one per marking period. Now it's mostly the outsiders, unfortunately, because the curriculum is so changed. But they now read, my present students, we read the outsiders, and I have all your, that was then, the set of that was then, that was now, Rumblefish, Text, Tammy the Star, and they read it on their own now. And it's all because of you, and I can't thank you enough for being on the show. When I asked you, you simply said yes. And I can't express, obviously, I can't express well enough how much it means to me that you took the time to be on the show.
Well, can I tell you something?
Yes.
Teachers are my heroes. I tried it during my student teaching period, and I could not do it. I didn't have the balls. I didn't have the guts. I didn't have whatever it takes. So whenever I can help a teacher, I'm glad to help a teacher. And frankly, you guys are the best advertising a writer could ever hope for.
Well, thank you, and you make teaching, reading a joy and really a pleasure. I want our audience to know your website is sehinton.com.
Right.
Great website, everyone. May I give out your Twitter name?
Oh, sure.
Okay, it's
sure, my Twitter name.
Would you like to tell them? Or?
Well, at
okay.
SE for real Hinton. I tried to get at SE Hinton, but somebody already took it.
And the 4 is a number, SE number 4 Real Hinton, at SE4 Real Hinton. Miss Hinton, again, I can't thank you enough, and I'll forever appreciate this visit from you on our show. And all my students are going to be listening to this for years now. Each new 8th grade will be listening to this interview, and I thank you so much, Miss Hinton.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.